Welcome back to CIA Declassified. We are stepping back into the early 1950s and mid 1960s, the high noon of the Cold War. This was an era where the battlefield was the human mind and the ammunition was information. Across Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, the agency realized that while armies could hold territory, only ideas could topple regimes. The world was a tinderbox of post-colonial movements and iron-fisted dictatorships, and QRURGE was the match. They didn't just want to win wars, they wanted to engineer spontaneous uprisings. They sought to harness the genuine frustrations of oppressed populations and weaponize them through a sophisticated system of psychological manipulation. This was the birth of a doctrine that turned the radio tower into a siege engine. This was QRURGE. How did this operation get its name? The designation QRURGE was a digraph-based cryptonym within the agency's psychological warfare division. The QR prefix was the agency designation assigned to propaganda and political action programs, specifically targeting the Soviet bloc and its satellite states. The suffix "urge" was chosen for its phonetic link to the operational goal, to urge or incite the civilian population towards specific disruptive behaviors. It was a linguistic reflection of the agency's intent to act as the biological catalyst for social combustion. QRURGE was not merely about lying, it was about the refraction of truth. The QRURGE operation was a massive multinational program focused on gray propaganda, information where the source is not identified, allowing the agency to blend factual grievances with strategic exaggerations. A quote from a declassified 1953 Office of Policy Coordination directive. The mission is to create a state of mind in the target population which will lead to the eventual overthrow of the regime by its own people. End quote. Records show that QRURGE utilized mobile printing presses hidden in the back of bread trucks to distribute anti-government leaflets during times of food shortages. Documentation confirms that the agency operated ghost radio stations that mimicked official government frequencies to broadcast false orders during times of civil tension. The program involved the black balloon drops, where millions of anti-communist pamphlets were floated over the Iron Curtain from launch sites in West Germany. A quote from a declassified internal evaluation of psychological operations. A well-placed rumor regarding the health of a dictator is more effective than 1,000 tons of TNT. End quote. QRURGE employed deep cover agitators who were trained to infiltrate local labor unions and transform economic strikes into political riots. Logs indicate the agency used rumor-mongering networks, paying local gossips in marketplaces to spread stories about government corruption. The agency established exile news fronts in New York and Paris that functioned as legitimate news agencies, but were entirely funded by QRURGE to feed manufactured dissent back into target countries. Technical files revealed that the agency developed silent adhesive posters that were coated with a chemical that made them nearly impossible to peel off once stuck to a wall. The agency utilized Operation AOK, a subset of QRURGE that involved mailing thousands of fake winning lottery tickets to government officials to distract them with personal greed during a planned uprising. Records confirm the use of ink-smudging agents in leaflets designed so that when police touched the propaganda, the ink would stain their hands for days, marking them as targets for public ridicule. Documentation shows the agency recruited local astrologers in Southeast Asia to publish horoscopes predicting the imminent fall of the ruling regime. A quote from a declassified 1954 task force report: "We must ensure that the citizen feels that the regime is not only oppressive, but also ridiculous." End quote. QRURGE funded a underground satire magazine in Poland that was so successful even high-ranking communist officials were caught reading it. Factual ledgers show payments to street performers who used puppet shows to mimic and mock the speeches of the head of state. The agency orchestrated run-on-the-bank rumors by having agents stand in line at the banks early in the morning to create the illusion of a financial panic. Records indicate that QRURGE utilized acoustic deception devices that played the sound of distant gunfire in cities to trick security forces into moving out of position. The CIA established letter-writing clubs in neutral countries to flood the target nation's post office with messages of solidarity from non-existent people. A quote from a declassified 1961 memo to the director: "Information is not a tool, it is the environment. We must control the climate of the mind." End quote. Documentation reveals the creation of counter slogans that were specifically designed to rhyme with the government's own propaganda to make it easier for people to remember the dissent. The agency used invisible dye on the handles of government buildings that would only show up under UV light, allowing crowds to identify collaborators at night. Logs show QRURGE agents planted coded classified ads in national newspapers to signal to underground cells when to begin a protest. The program distributed crank-powered radios to rural villagers who had no electricity, ensuring they could only receive the agency's freedom stations. Records confirm the agency bribed local postmasters to misplace official government tax notices during periods of high unrest. Technical files indicate the use of Project Valiant, a QRURGE subproject that dropped thousands of miniature cheap compasses to guide the people toward the West. The agency produced underground history textbooks that corrected government-mandated myths and smuggled them into schools. Accounts show the agency used scent markers on propaganda drops, smelling like popular local perfumes, to entice people to pick them up. Records prove that the agency created phony pro-government groups that were so extreme and obnoxious they actually drove moderate citizens toward the opposition. The agency utilized skywriting planes in remote areas to paint the symbols of the resistance above government military bases. Documentation reveals the use of bioluminescent algae in reservoirs to create eerie glows that were then interpreted by agency-planted rumors as bad omens for the leadership. Internal ledgers confirm that QRURGE purchased commercial billboard space in neighboring countries to taunt border guards with images of freedom. Station logs reveal the use of fake emergency alerts transmitted via shortwave radio to induce military officers to abandon their post. Records show the agency developed self-dissolving paper for leaflets that would disappear if dropped in water, preventing the regime from gathering evidence. Documentation confirms the agency funded traveling cinemas that showed censored Western films to promote the image of capitalist prosperity. The agency utilized carrier pigeons in areas where radio signals were jammed to transport microfilm between resistance leaders. Internal memos describe the creation of phony defector letters mailed to government leaders to plant seeds of suspicion regarding their inner circle. Ledgers show the purchase of thousands of local garments to allow agency-trained agitators to blend seamlessly into urban crowds. Records prove the agency organized morning protests where citizens would simply walk silently in the streets, a tactic that made it legally difficult for police to intervene. The agency used short-range FM transmitters hidden in trees near university campuses to broadcast messages to students. When you examine the declassified QRURGE files, the most significant redactions occur in the section titled Series 7 Behavioral Trigger Analysis. This section contains the most redactions in the history of agency psychological reporting. with nearly 95% of the influence methodology pages replaced by solid black blocks. The air gets very strange when researchers look at these gaps. There is a persistent whisper from the darker corners of the internet that these redactions hide the results of subliminal acoustic experiments. Imagine if the radio wasn't just telling you what to think, but how to feel. Speculation suggests that QRURGE broadcast contained low-frequency tones meant to induce anxiety or aggression, a literal audio drug designed to push a peaceful crowd into a violent frenzy. Another theory dives into the iconography files. Some speculate the agency wasn't just using ink and paper, but light and shadows. They believe the agency staged miracles or used high-powered projectors to cast religious apparitions onto the low-hanging clouds over superstitious villages. The conspiracy posits that the redactions protect technological prophecy, the science of faking a god to start a riot. There is a theory that QRURGE included a project to map the social genome of entire cities. Speculation exists that the redactions hide a list of sociological pressure points, specific city blocks or community leaders who, if neutralized or co-opted, would cause the entire social structure of a capital city to collapse, like a house of cards. A more modern speculation suggests that the redactions hide the agency's early discovery of the dopamine feedback loop in social groups. The theory is that QRURGE discovered how to make dissent addictive through specific rhythmic chanting and communal rituals, creating a psychological dependence on the protest itself. They argue the blacked out files are the literal recipe for fanaticism that the government is too terrified to let the public see. Lastly, lately, there's a fringe theory which has emerged regarding the acoustic deception section. This conspiracy posits that the redactions hide the use of ultrasonic voice transfers, a technology that beams sound directly into a person's skull so they hear voices that no one else can hear. Theorists suggest the agency used this to make specific regime leaders believe they were going insane or receiving instructions from higher powers, effectively neutralizing them from the inside out. Was the QRURGE operation a success? Tactically, it was a psychological triumph. It successfully fueled the fires of dissent in several Eastern Bloc nations and was a key factor in the instability of the 1956 Hungarian uprising. Strategically, it was a chaotic legacy. The program was a success in that it proved the vulnerability of totalitarianism to coordinated information strikes. The success of QRURGE is found in the creation of a permanent state of paranoia within hostile governments. It successfully turned every citizen into a potential suspect in the eyes of the regime. It proved that the information space is the most cost-effective battlefield for regime change. The agency successfully integrated social science into the heart of clandestine warfare, a move that birthed the modern concept of soft power. It was a categorical success in making freedom of information a weapon as sharp as any blade. By utilizing QRURGE, the CIA successfully proved that a whisper in a marketplace could, with enough amplification, become a storm that topples a palace. However, the operation's success often came at the high cost to the civilians it urged into the streets, many of whom were left to face the tanks alone when the whisper didn't follow through with military support. It successfully proved that the mind is a lock and propaganda is the key. The operational template created under QRURGE paved the way for every color revolution of the modern era. Its success was not measured in territory gained, but in the psychological exhaustion of the enemy's leaders. It was the ultimate success in making the truth a matter of operational perspective. Furthermore, it successfully demonstrated that a government can be toppled without a single shot being fired by American troops. The operation successfully converted the concepts of public opinion into a quantifiable military asset. Ultimately, it was a success because it taught the agency that the most secure wall in the world could be breached by a simple, well-timed idea. It successfully established the agency as the preeminent architect of invisible revolutions, a status that fundamentally altered the global balance of power without moving a single artillery piece. The mission proved that you don't need to break a man's bones if you can break his belief in the system. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, the voice of the storm resulted in breakthroughs that define modern influence operations, such as micro-clandestine printing technology, the development of ultra-thin, high-strength paper and miniature presses to lead the modern field expedient document generation used by special forces today. Shortwave signal bouncing, the agency's methods for signal masking and bouncing radio waves off of the ionosphere, provided the foundation for modern over-the-horizon radar and secure satellite uplinks. Sentiment analysis profiling, the early QRURGE methods for monitoring public mood through mail intercepts and marketplace reports, are the direct ancestors of modern social media analytics and AI-driven political polling. And high-altitude leaflet dispersal systems. The physics developed for the black balloon drops led to the creation of modern precision cargo drop systems and smart flaring technology used for humanitarian aid. QRURGE reminds us that the most powerful weapon in the world is the story a person tells themselves. The voice of the storm proved that the agency's greatest strength was not in weapons, but in its understanding of the human heart's desire for change. The leaflets have yellowed and the radio stations have gone silent, but the methodology of perception management remains the core of modern geopolitics. We are still living in the world that QRURGE imagined, a world where the lines between a genuine protest and a managed operation is as thin as the paper those first leaflets were printed on. The echoes of these campaigns can be felt in every digital feed and every viral message that urges a crowd to move as one. The voice of the storm has not been silenced, it has merely moved from the radio waves to the fiber optic cables of the 21st century. Every spark of unrest in a distant land carries with it the ghost of the agency's first psychological architects. The blueprints of the past have become the algorithms of the present. We are the audience, the actors, and the targets of the storm that never ends. The quiet manipulation of the marketplace of ideas has become the loudest instrument in the orchestra of power. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, and remember, the loudest voice in the room is often the one you can't see. Join us next time as we examine X key score. In the vast ocean of the internet, the agency built a net that catches every fish. We'll uncover the facts behind X key score, the search system that allows intelligence analysts to search global web data. It was the ultimate digital panopticon where privacy was a relic of the past and every click left a trail. Join us next time for the digital dragnet. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.